Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Journey of Restoration CPR Style Foundations class. Now we are focusing on reframing. We're so glad you're here. You're doing amazing work. And today we're taking another big step forward in your transformation. We will learn these concepts: understand reframing, recognize how trauma is stored in the brain, engage the senses, and practice reframing. This will take practice, but every shift brings us closer to freedom. Believe in yourself, take a big breath, because you're going to do amazing things.
Imagine a stark, sterile lab in the 1950s. In the center of the room, a scientist is hovering over a deep bucket of water. Inside, a rat is swimming in tight, frantic circles, its tiny little limbs slicing through the surface. The seconds drag into minutes, and then, at around the 15-minute mark, the rat stops fighting, it gives up, and it sinks. But this time, the scientist reaches in, he lifts it out, he dries it off, and he lets it rest. Then, after a short break, he places it back into the same water. What happened next stunned everyone. Instead of drowning after another 15 minutes, the rat swam for 60 hours, 240 times longer than before. Why? Because the rat had hope. The first time, it had no reason to believe that rescue was coming. The second time, it had a new frame of reference. I was saved once before, maybe I'll be saved again. That tiny shift changed everything. And this is the power of reframing, changing the way that we see our past so that it no longer controls our future. Whether we realize it or not, our bodies remember things our minds have tried to forget. Maybe it's the way your chest tightens when someone raises their voice. Maybe it's the way your stomach knots at the smell of alcohol, or the way your hands go cold when you walk into a certain place and you don't even know why. If you remember, this is our amygdala, your internal alarm system responding. Trauma isn't just a story from the past, it's an experience your body holds on to. But here's the truth we have to face. Your wound probably is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. That can feel unfair, and maybe it is, but fairness was never promised, healing was. And healing begins when we take what was once speechless terror and give a voice to it, a witness, ultimately a new frame. Why do we draw in this process? Why not just talk about it? Because trauma isn't stored in the part of your brain that talks. It's not your intellect. It's in your middle part of your brain where images are, emotions are, and sensations live. This is why just thinking about your trauma doesn't heal it. Because the wound it's not actually intellectual. In order to reframe the event, it has to be experiential. So let's talk about the process of reframing. I want you to go back to a moment in your life, one that still lingers, one that, if you're honest, still has its hooks into you. Now, instead of explaining it away, I want you to draw it. Once you've drawn it, I want you to bring life through your senses to it. In that image, what did you smell? What did you taste? How did it feel on your skin? What was happening inside of your body? What sounds wrapped around you? What did your eyes take in? You might hesitate. You might think, I can't draw. This won't help. But this isn't about being an artist. This is about engaging your middle brain with emotions and imagination instead of your intellect. If you don't engage your middle brain, it stays loose in your mind, and that event has permission to hijack your emotions at any time. But when you witness it through your imagination and you place it into a new frame, then and only then can you begin to ask the most important question. Jesus, where were you? What did I need in that moment? And Jesus, what did you want me to know during this time? That's where the reframing truly happens. Let me tell you a story. I once sat with a woman who had come so far. She'd rebuilt her life, her faith, her sense of self, but yet one day she walked into a building and she was triggered by her surroundings. No warnings, no explanations. One moment she was fine and the next she was not. She was running, leaving behind her young daughter unable to breathe. No one understood, not even her. So we sat together and she did this process. She drew the moment and then she answered the sensory questions. What did you smell when you walked into that room? And her face went pale. She smelled spaghetti sauce, a simple smell, one she had encountered thousands of times before. But as she drew, she sank deeper into the memories stored into her body, and something surfaced. A kitchen, a boiling pot, her mother's rage, the scalding splash of spaghetti sauce as it hit her head. Her body had remembered. And when she smelled that same scent again, decades later, her nervous system reacted as if she was that still little girl. But this time, instead of drowning in the memory, she asked, Jesus, where were you? And suddenly she sat there with her drawing, her eyes filled with tears. Oh my goodness, she said. He was right there. Jesus put ointment on me before it ever even happened. I should have scars all over my face, but I don't. He protected me. Her frame shifted. Instead of her past overwhelming her, she now has a new narrative. I was hurt, but I wasn't abandoned. I was broken, but I was also protected. I am not the same little girl anymore. I am free. Reframing is not a one-time fix. It's a discipline. The next time she smells spaghetti sauce, she'll have a choice. Would she default to the old narrative, the one where she's still in danger, or would she choose the new frame, the one where Jesus had been with her all along? Reframing is the work of constantly shifting our perspective until the truth becomes more real than the lie of the experience. So I leave you with this. The next time something triggers you, pause, ask yourself, what frame am I seeing this through? And then ask Jesus where he was, what he wants you to see, because your past does not get to pick your future. What happened to you does not get to define you. And you, right now, have the power to choose a new frame. So go back to the places where you've cried, and someday, when you're ready, experience Jesus there instead.
Reframing is a game changer. Reframing is learning how to take a traumatic experience or a crisis and looking at that situation from a new lens, where it no longer has the same sting. It can't continue to re-traumatize you. You can be healed from trauma. You can give it a new frame or a narrative, and it's Jesus' narrative. And this is what I was praying for would happen on our trip. After we spent some time connecting with our friends from No Boundaries, we actually went to the gym. As you know, exercising gets all of the hormones and toxins released, and then we just spent some time catching up with them. So my daughter sings and she plays guitar. So she had written a song about the night of the event, and she shared it in the company of just a few of us. And then we just prayed, asking the Holy Spirit to come and lead us through the process of healing and restoration, knowing that God wanted this more than us. And that's exactly what he did. It was the most beautiful process, and it didn't even take very long. I want to describe to you a little bit about what this looked like for my daughter. So Dr. Lori led us through some prayer, making sure that she understood she was safe, she was in control, and that she could look at this event as an outsider from a distance, safely looking in. Then Lori took her back to that evening by asking her some of the details of the night, making sure to activate her brain by asking those sensory questions like, what did you smell? What did you see? What did you hear? What were you wearing? What were other people wearing? And as she grew more comfortable, she was asked to close her eyes and walk back through the events of the night. My daughter described feeling very small and vulnerable. And I know for a fact that she felt some guilt about not having fought harder or tried harder to escape. It was just such a beautiful thing to have Dr. Lori explain the psychoeducation to her, that she had gone into survival mode. So it's either fight, flight, or freeze. And she froze. And that's completely normal. And that's a natural way to respond. This is how God created her brain so that she could survive this difficult moment. She shouldn't feel shame, remorse, or guilt for how she responded in a survival moment. As she continued to remember the night, she was asked to invite Jesus to meet her here in this memory. Dr. Lori asked her if she could find him, and she did. She said, "Where is he? Where is Jesus?" And my daughter said Jesus was holding her hand. Then she was asked, "Do you see the person who did this?" And she found him. She then walked over to him with Jesus. As she was doing this, she was looking at this situation as a bystander. And she was asked, "What would you like to say to him?" And she said, "You don't have the right to do what you did." Next, Lori invited her to tell him what he took from her. And she gave him permission to take it all back. She was able to take back everything she lost, her joy, her excitement, her innocence. If you remember, at first she had seen herself as really small and helpless, but as she stood there next to Jesus, she described him as small. He was like a tiny little superhero figurine. No longer did he have the power over her when she was standing next to Jesus. After that, after she reclaimed all that she had lost from him, she was invited to tell him anything else she needed to say. Just get it off her chest, which she did. And finally, she was asked if she could forgive him. And this was really just the most unbelievable thing to watch. She did. Lori led her through a prayer of forgiveness, and she actually prayed for his family, for his future, and she actually bent down and scooped him up, this tiny little figurine, in her hands. And then she placed them in Jesus' hands. And in that process, she was also holding a bucket filled with shame and filth, and she was able to give that to Jesus. So he walked off with her bucket of shame and that person as well. He just walked out of the room. As this happened, you could visibly feel and see her entire countenance change. She felt like all of this that she'd been carrying had immediately been released. She actually said she felt like she was in an airplane where the windows had been opened and she was able to watch as all of the hurt was just sucked out, and she felt weightless. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. To see the power of what Jesus can do in a single moment, and to know that he wants this for all of us. He wants to set us free. He wants to meet us in the broken places in our lives, and he'll do it again and again and again if we will only let him. He will take the painful parts of our story, and that's exactly what happened. And this event took place this was less than a month after this event had initially even happened. So there's no reason to carry around any sort of hurt or pain or trauma one day longer than is necessary. It was literally a miracle. So I'm just so excited to share the story of what reframing looks like. And now that event doesn't have any power over her anymore, over her memory, over her future, over her going forward. She's free to take flight in this next chapter of her life without all that baggage.
Today, we're learning about reframing. Reframing is a skill we are going to use in a messy or frustrating moment. We're not yet going into the biggest traumas, but let's do everyday struggles that throw us off. Learning to activate, regulate, investigate, and reframe in small moments prepares us for deeper healing later. So take a moment, think of a frustrating or maybe an overwhelming situation. Nothing huge, just something that maybe stuck with you. It could be a tough conversation, a day that you felt like things were just impossible in the moment and you were overwhelmed and discouraged. So grab your companion journal. We're going to draw the 4 steps of reframing together as we go along. No need for artistic skill, just a way to see the process visually. Again, we are not looking for a perfect drawing. So in step 1, we activate. We recall a time of activation. Draw how this made you feel. Draw the scene or use the colors to help draw how you felt. It could just be colors and shapes, or it can actually be the picture or scene. Feel free to use stick figures. It's not about a perfect drawing. So let's pause and get to work. Okay. Now, step 2 is regulate. I hope as you were recalling that memory that to make sure and stay calm. Breathing really helps. So when you're recalling that messy moment, make sure you're staying in the here and now. This will become very important as you dig into deeper, larger, more traumatic memories later in your journey. Before we can process, we need to make sure we're calm in our body and in our emotions. Even thinking about that frustrating moment can trigger stress. So always be ready to take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and make sure you're calm before moving forward. Okay, now we're ready for step 3. This is where we investigate. You're going to ask yourself questions. Is this about this moment, or is this a trigger about something deeper? Another great question is, who taught me to react like this? Or when was this the first time that I felt like this? And another one is, what did I really need or want in this moment? So take a pause and reflect over these questions. Okay, now we're ready for step 4, which is reframe. In this, we start to shift our thinking. And when we shift our thinking, it changes our perspective to his perspective. So let's ask Jesus a few questions. What's one truth I can hold on to about this situation? How does Jesus see this moment? Where is Jesus in my picture, and draw him there? Has Jesus already met this need that I felt was missing? So let's take a pause and look at our picture, draw Jesus in, and then join me back in just a little bit. Okay, I want to encourage you. If you didn't hear or sense anything, remember that the Bible offers guidance. Engaging deeply with Scripture and seeking God's perspective can aid in reframing our thoughts. As Matthew 7:7-8 encourages, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. So now look at what you've created. This is a visual reminder that messy moments don't have to stay messy. When we activate, then we regulate, investigate, and reframe, we move from feeling stuck to having hope. This small practice, taking moments, it prepares us for bigger challenges. Let's carry this forward. God is always offering us a new perspective. Let's train ourselves to see it. Thanks for being here, and let's keep growing together.
This week, we're focusing on reframing, and we're going to make it fun and engaging for you. You're going to take some of each day to reflect on happy moments, and we're going to use our senses to dive deep into those memories. Here's how you'll walk it out. Find something that made you happy. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to think about something that made you smile, laugh, or truly feel happy. It can be small or big, just anything that brought you joy. Next, journal about it. Write down what happened and really try to dive into the memory. Ask yourself those sensory questions. What did I see? What did I smell? What did I taste? And what did I feel on my skin? How did my body feel when I was relaxed, energized, and excited? If you're comfortable, draw it. If you're feeling creative, this is a great way to activate your brain a little bit more. Even a simple doodle can help you relive that happy moment more vividly. You have permission to use stick figures and simple shapes. It's just about evoking a feeling. It's not perfection. And then ask Jesus. Here's where it gets really special. Take a moment to ask God, where were you in that moment? What did you think of the happiness I'm experiencing? Take a few moments to listen and see if anything comes to mind. You will ask Jesus where he is in your picture, then place him there. By tapping into your senses, you're connecting deeper into the emotion that you already experienced. Also, when you invite God into the happy moments, you're recognizing his presence in your memories, making them even more meaningful. This practice not only strengthens your ability to stay focused on positive moments, but it also builds a foundation for when you need to reframe harder, more challenging memories. When the time comes and you feel Jesus is ready for you to tackle those tough spots, you'll be able to use the same approach, drawing on the strength of your senses, his presence, and the habit of reframing to bring healing to those difficult memories. At the end of the week, look back at your journal. Notice any patterns or special moments that stand out. What have you learned about what brings you joy? How has your relationship with God felt in the moments of happiness? This exercise is all about connecting with God and seeing Jesus in the midst of those moments. It's a great way to practice reframing negative thoughts by focusing on positive, sensory-rich experiences. And as you continue this practice, you'll be even better prepared for when Jesus invites you to reframe more challenging memories. So keep it light and fun and enjoy the step of this journey.